Chapter 12. Gary. We got in the car, and minutes later we pulled up to a beautiful rock home near the lake in a neighborhood I'd never seen before. 2 huge doors opened to the home's entryway, and to the right I saw the dining room. Beyond that, there appeared to be a living room with a view of the lake. I could even see the lighthouse. The house was cleaner than anywhere I'd ever been. The air felt cool and crisp. 2 girls ran up and hugged Malcolm around the knees. "Daddy!" they both yelled. "Tony, these are my daughters. This is Emily, she's 6, and Abby is 5. They waved at me from behind their father's legs. Malcolm patted them both on the back. "Hey, honey." An attractive blonde woman walked in from another room. She was a little shorter than Malcolm. She walked up to him and gave him a kiss and a hug. "Tony, this is my wife, Leslie. Leslie, this is Tony." She smiled at me. "Nice to meet you, Tony. Gary, how are you?" "Fine." "You boys must be starving. Come on in. There's breakfast waiting for you in the dining room," Leslie said. The kids ran to the dining table and sat down. We ate scrambled eggs, sausage, biscuits, and jam. The smell of such good food after being in jail almost made my nose explode. It was the best breakfast that I'd ever had. Not just because the food was good and I was starving, but also because of the company. It was fun watching Malcolm and Leslie. They really enjoyed being together. As we talked during the meal, Malcolm and Leslie smiled at each other and laughed. Occasionally, one would lean over and whisper something to the other. It was like watching 2 best friends. I started thinking about my own family. My mom was great. She gave us kids everything she had. But my dad never came to see us much. He didn't even pay child support. I sure couldn't remember a time when my parents had still been together and they'd been affectionate with one another. I decided I was going to learn as much as I could from Malcolm, so that if I ever got married and started a family, my home would be happy like his. After we ate, Malcolm drove us back to the parking lot. Gary and I got out and said goodbye to Malcolm. It hit me that Malcolm had it all. He had a beautiful family, a home, and a growing business. He was in great shape and ran marathons. I knew I had to learn as much as I could from him. If I achieved only half as much as he had, I still would exceed my wildest dreams. When we reached the parking lot, Gary went over to a shiny pickup and pushed a button on his key. I saw the parking lights flash and heard the locks open. The truck was clean inside and out, and I knew it had been well maintained. I got in on the passenger side. I had never been in such a nice truck. I couldn't believe that it was owned by someone like me. Just 18 months ago, Gary had been an inmate. If Gary can get all of this, so can I. I'm willing to take whatever action I have to, I thought, as Gary backed out of the parking space. Gary drove for 10 minutes before pulling into a neighborhood and then into a driveway. He pushed a button in an overhead compartment. One of the 2 garage doors opened. I looked at Gary. "Is this yours?" "Yes, just me and the bank." My jaw dropped. "I know, Tony. Sometimes I don't believe it myself. All I can say is that Malcolm is a great teacher and mentor. He's a great person. Listen to what he says. Do what he tells you to do. You never know what can happen to you." Gary drove into the garage. I opened my door and followed Gary into the house. The garage led into the laundry room and then into the kitchen. "There's food in the fridge. Your room is down the end of the hall. The bathroom is on the right. Clean towels are in the cabinet." Gary went down the hall and I heard a door close. I looked around the house and noticed how clean it was. Nothing was out of place, and there was no clutter. I walked down the hall to my room. An hour later, I was asleep. When I woke up, it was 1:30 in the afternoon. My legs were a little sore, but I managed to get to the living room. Gary was sitting on the sofa reading the book that Malcolm told him to read. Gary obviously takes action, I thought. No wonder he has a house and a nice truck, and owns a business. Gary saw me walking a little stiffly into the room and chuckled. "Don't worry, it gets better," he said as he closed the book. Be sure to wash your clothes this afternoon. Detergent is on top of the washer. Okay. I went to the kitchen, made my lunch, and leaned against the counter to eat it. I didn't even bother to sit down because I knew if I did, I might not be able to get up. Gary found some clean clothes for me to wear while I washed my own. I changed my clothes, started the laundry, and made another sandwich. I could have eaten almost anything, but a sandwich was the least complicated, and I didn't have the energy to think about cooking. I finished the sandwich and headed towards my room. Gary was on the couch reading again. It felt so good to stretch out on my bed and be alone with my thoughts. No more cellmates. I thought about all that had happened in the last 24 hours. I was released from jail and able to get to the lake and meet Malcolm. I kept my promises. Everything that Malcolm and I talked about for the past several weeks was coming true. I knew I was starting a new journey. My life wouldn't be like it had been before those 90 days in jail. I felt hope and peace like I never had before. I knew there was a purpose to my life and that I would do great things. I fell asleep wondering where the next 24 hours would take me.